therapist say everything's gonna be alright.
The following is paid for by IMIC Incorporated.
The Cure with Aimee Cabo is brought to you by IMIC Research. Life can bring many difficult situations: domestic violence, addictions, poverty, and even sexual abuse by your loved ones. Welcome, Aimee Cabo and The Cure.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Aimee Cabo, and this is The Cure. We're live every Friday at 2 p.m. on 880 The Biz. You can listen online at godisthecure.com, and later the show will be available as a podcast too through our web pages, godisthecure.com. Our show covers topics such as how to overcome trauma, abuse, mental illness, common misconceptions, treatment, healing options, and positive behaviors, as well as we provide education through testimonials and awareness and through professionals in the field. Today, I am joined by Dr. Boris Nikolov. Hello. And we have a very special guest who is Kirk Abner. Let me tell you a little something about Kirk. He's a motivational speaker, featured in Forbes speaker, thought leader, a suicide survivor, and an author. Kirk shares his insight and the lessons learned in his latest book, Dogman. And today, the topic that we will be discussing is the question that a lot of us ask ourselves: does the outside world define us? And I can tell you, from my point of view, my actions do not depend on how people judge me. My actions only depend on God's judgment. It's my relationship with God that matters the most, not how the world relates to me. I've been judged most of my life, but the only judgment that concerns me is God's, not even my own, because I can be a tough critic when it comes to myself. And coincidentally, this morning I saw in the news SAT scores requiring personal questions like: where do you live? How much do your parents make? What are your family dynamics? And I believe that working hard, doing the right thing, having the right attitude, with a little bit of self-discipline and making the grade should be enough. We should not be defined by our circumstances, our ethnicity, our belief, or the belief of others, but by our abilities and by what we have to offer. So, I'd like to present to you Kirk Abner.
Hey, thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you
very much.
so much for being on this show, Kirk. And I have to tell you that I was reading a little bit about you, and I know that you're a motivational speaker, and you've been even recognized by the President, Ronald Reagan, which is amazing, but that you specialize in things that are so important in today's world that everybody deals with. You specialize in triggering personal development, finding motivation, living with awareness, moving towards actualization, practicing mindfulness, maximizing your relationships, making diversity universal, avoiding depression, suicide prevention, and being unconditional love. Where would you like to start when it comes to the world defining us? And is there anything you don't know?
Again, I've had quite a journey. My career path looks a lot like Spaghetti Junction. But again, it's a pleasure to be on the program. Amy, my life is kind of a life of contradiction. I had a wonderful childhood growing up in Nashville, Tennessee. I've got some great parents. Our father had a good job. My brother and sister and I all got to go to private school. I went on to college where I was actually recognized by Ronald Reagan for some work I was doing. So the point is, while my life on paper looked normal, it wasn't perfect, but it was normal. And that's why it would be so unbelievable, just so ironic that 20 years after I graduated, I had reached such a depression. I was so miserable. In fact, I had come to the conclusion, Amy, that the only reason I had been born was to suffer.
I know that
one. I didn't think I would ever enjoy any kind of happiness for myself. So I was in a suicidal depression, and there on a couple of occasions over a 4-week period, I tried to end my own life. But, the human spirit's very tenacious. Fortunately, I was able to move beyond that rough patch and get some help and start this journey I've been on for the last 20 years. And I just feel so thankful. But I think what's been really remarkable are these basic principles that I've discovered that are critical in our pursuit of happiness. And so that's what my latest book is about, Flower Dog Man. Principles that I think each one of us can hear and listen and use in our lives in our pursuit of happiness.
Well, yes, I believe this is an excellent book. I mean, it's gotten excellent reviews and everything, and you have a lot of wisdom to share with the world. I'm very grateful for people like you. I have an interesting question. How can people rediscover themselves? How do they embark on this personal journey that you talk about, that they can find who they truly are as human beings?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, Aimee, for most of us, it takes some sort of a devastating event in our lives to get us to start reconsidering, what we're doing, who we are we on the right path? And, I was certainly an example of that. And my hope is for your audience today and with the book that people can be more, what I would say, prophylactic, and that they can do these, start looking and considering the different changes they might be able to incorporate in their own life without having to hit the bottom. For example, I know this is graduation time for schools all over the country, and there's a lot of hardworking kids out there that are graduating, and their full expectation is that once they get through their college, get that degree and get that diploma and get that job and move to the right town and buy that right house and settle down, the assumption is that by default, they're going to all be happy. Well, I've discovered that I don't think that's really that's the way we all become happy. In fact, all those things, they are important, but they're truly not the most important things that we have about ourselves. And I would suggest that really, my premise is this. I believe that when you're born, you are perfect. You're given a name and you're a perfect human being. And what that means is there's nothing that you have to prove either to yourself or anybody. You don't have to prove your humanity. In fact, my thought is actually when you're born, you're unconditional love, and you have the complete and full potential to remain unconditional love all the days of your life. But unfortunately for most of us, we start losing sight of that as we get older and older.
Well,
and we simply start defining ourselves other ways.
I'm so glad to have spoke to you because I do agree with you, and that's my point of view too, because I believe we were all made in Christ's image. And therefore, when we have kind thoughts, all the goodness that comes out of us, it's because we were born that way. We were born perfect. And sometimes when our actions can make us stray away from that. And we can, sometimes make our own bad situations. But I saw a preacher on TV not too long saying, well, people, their heart, they really want to do bad things. They want to be selfish. They want to be greedy. They want to do all that. And then God comes and rescues you and changes your heart. And I was wondering who was right.
Well, I agree with your premise. I think when we're born, we are unconditional love. And what that means is that we can love ourselves and we love other people the same way. And I think, so what it really looks like, as we start to lose that, it becomes what I think our ultimate journey. And the best path that we can get on is to try to regain that unconditional love somewhere along the way. Are you there?
A guest on the air. Okay. Hi. Okay, put down the phone. Oh.
I'm still here, Aimee.
Okay, yes, I'm here with you. I didn't know I had another call coming in. And
okay.
I will join her in a little bit right after the break, but I'm sorry, you were talking about rediscovering yourself and finding who you really are, not letting the world define you. Because a lot of times we are confined by what people think or how everyone else does it or how it's supposed to be. And I'll give you an example. For every wrong that's done, people expect justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what society tells you. Now, with all the wrongs that have been done in my life, and it was my own family, and all the people that have wronged me, I can't tell you I've seen justice. But justice was not necessary for me. My justice was being able to love, being able to feel happiness, being able to be grateful, being able to feel peace, being able to stay honest, hardworking, and loyal, and all the good attributes I've acquired as a result of everything I have overcome. But most of all, my ability to grow even closer in my relationship with God.
That is very honorable, your approach there. You know, I think, to me, there's sort of an ancient mantra of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And that was sort of the old way, I think, to compromise or settle conflicts with people. But your approach, you know, being able to love someone unconditionally, no matter what they have inflicted or done to you, well, I think that's really behaving the way that Jesus did or would have. And I really think that's when we act that way, what we truly are is a Holy Spirit. And it's just something that's so incredible and beautiful to behold.
That's amazing, because I see that one of the things that you work with, that it includes the series that includes thinking like Jesus, which I find amazing, because I think Jesus gave the best example possible how to live life. And trust me, I've tried to live the life that Jesus has taught us, even try to keep the 10 Commandments. And I haven't always been successful, but you got to at least try. I think that's what God expects of us, to try. And today I read on Facebook, it says, there's only 3 things you need to do in life. Do the right thing. Always try to do the right thing. And then the second thing was, whatever you do, do it to the best of your ability. And would you believe I don't remember the third thing? But I thought that was very important, because if you're not doing the right thing and you're not doing the best of your things to the best of your ability, you're only hurting yourself.
Well, you know, I think you're right on target there. And you know what's really amazing to me, Amy, it sounds so simple to love and love other people the same way, yet somehow the human race has made that a very, very difficult process. You know, and because, well, I would suggest that the biggest problem in the human condition is we really don't understand who we are as human beings. See, we only think we know who we are as human beings. And inevitably that's going to cause conflict or disappointment and just unhappy endings, I believe.
Well, there's nothing better than putting yourself in the other person's shoes and try to understand it from their point of view. I think that helps, helps get a conversation going. And it's just that we're sometimes so concerned about the way that we see things and the way that we would do things and the way that we would feel. And we have to understand not everybody has to be like everyone else. We could be different. We could step outside the box. We could set a good example. We don't have to let our society, the environment, or anything else define us. I think only really God can define you, as He already has since the day we were born.
Well, and I think what you're referring to there, the way I interpret that, is, and it's probably one of our most subtle exercises that we do as humans, is just how often we judge other people. What I've discovered, fortunately, in my life is the only thing I can truly control is myself.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's a handful, and it takes about a lifetime to figure that out. But how I interpret that, though, Amy, is that means if I can't control another person,
at least you yourself.
Why do I need to be judgmental about that person? For example, invariably, one of the most the lightning rod of our society anymore is who is sitting in the office of the President of the United States. Well, it's not part of our civic responsibility to voice our opinion each and every day on social media about what we think how the president is doing. So I've made it a deliberate practice that I I do not participate in those kind of conversations, because what I've discovered for myself, when I do that, they do not take me down that path towards genuine happiness. In fact, I find that participating in those just get me extremely agitated. And really, my voice in that regard wouldn't have any impact at all. So that's one of the practices that I follow. I refer to it as noise cessation. I choose not to be a part of the noise that I hear all around me every day.
Is it you, or did you used to be a politician? No. It's
no,
someone else.
Hardly. I think I had an office in high school or in my college fraternity, but
okay, it's someone else. Never mind. But when we come back, we're going to talk about how people can be unhappy comparing themselves with colleagues at work, the social media, friends and neighbors, and this is very interesting. This would be great. This is, for anyone that's just tuning in, I'm Aimee Cabo, and this is The Cure.
And now we continue with Aimee Cabo and The Cure on 880 The Biz.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Aimee Cabo, and this is The Cure. Today we're talking about how to love yourself, how to overcome things in society, in today's world, and our special guest is Kirk Abner. Also, we had someone call in by the name of Lillian. Hello, Lillian. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
My name is Lillian Newman, and as you know, recently you discovered that I am your second cousin. So I want to talk about that whole self-validation. And, we're all born into this world innocent and pure and trusting and childlike. And as life and humanity happens to us, things happen that hurt very deeply. I don't think that I have received my validation for healing from humanity so much as in prayer from God Himself. I have read your book, and I had to put it down several times because I broke down in tears and cried. I wish more than anything I would have been present to you, and I wish we would have known of you, but your mom kept us away from you. But we're back in touch now.
But I can tell you're my cousin. I mean, yes, my mother, all we knew was each other, the 9 of us, the siblings. We didn't know we had aunts or uncles or cousins. But just recently, I did 23andMe about a week ago, and lo and behold, I have a cousin.
Yes, and that's me. But what I haven't really told you is that...
Oh, the radio. Just turn off your radio, Lillian, please.
What I haven't told you is that I share an abusive childhood and an incident as an adult. And I can tell you that only God can take that pain away.
Lillian, please turn down your radio. There's some static music in the background.
The computer off.
Okay, that's
what
better.
I wanted to say is that
I really want to hear what you're saying.
I understand because as a child, I had a situation, and as an adult, I had a situation that broke my heart and it broke my faith. I was abused by a Roman Catholic nun. And I'm going to tell you that only God can take that pain away. Only He can heal you. In prayer, we wait around for humans, and all we hear are silence, and people don't know how to handle it. People don't know what to do. And only God, all of our healing from all the stuff that happens in this life comes from the throne of grace, from going to God and saying, I can't do this by myself. I need your help. I need to get through this. And then if we allow ourselves to, He reaches through our pain and He transforms us and makes us stronger, and then we can advocate for others who are hurting, and we can be better people. We've always been good people, and we are all born innocent.
And it's so nice that you share your testimony with us, Lillian, because I understand what it's like to feel that bad. And our guest Kirk, he has at one point tried suicide. I know what that's like. I can tell you a few times I thought I might have died or or anything like that. But Kirk, could you, I wanted to ask you, because what we were talking about, Lillian, was, once you do go through trauma and you do maybe heal and maybe you're getting on with your life, how do we survive in a world that's so controlled by the social media, by the way that people view us, by our colleagues, by our neighbors? I understand most people want to feel accepted and loved.
Right.
And
we
Kirk,
have to find out where that line is, where we end and they begin.
well,
There are so many actions of
let me
other
ask
people
Kirk here for a second. Kirk, can you tell us a little bit about what where you were able to find it, that once you try to suicide yourself and you find your way and you were able to help others, what would you tell somebody who's struggling in this way, that is just having a hard time adjusting? Okay, so they went through trauma.
Good question. One of the steps that I've discovered, again, you have to start developing an awareness of yourself and just be able to see yourself in context. That's not natural for us, but one of the things that I really try to practice is this. It's one of the great things, I look at life as being like a train ride, except this train that we're on doesn't go 60 miles an hour, it goes 60 seconds a minute. But the beautiful thing about this train ride of life that we're on is we do not have to carry any baggage. Baggage in the form of disappointment or resentment or loss or frustration or grudges. So, I think nature is the best teacher of that. No matter how big the storm is today, tomorrow the sun's going to come back up. And I think we as human beings, we have that same opportunity and potential, but it's so important. So we have to let Mother Nature and time heal us. And I think one of the best ways to do that is we can control the things we think about, and we can particularly control the things we talk about. So I'm sorry about the events that's happened in your life, but what I've discovered is the best thing that I can do to move beyond that. See, it's been 20-something years for me, and is I just do not bring it up in conversation.
Right.
It's nothing that I think about, so I'm doing my best.
I needed to bring it up because I am family, and I wanted Aimee to know when I read her book that I wasn't judging her and that I understood. Because, being a survivor, when you come up to somebody and you say, hey, I'm a survivor, there are people that just basically say, I don't want to have anything to do with you. You're weird. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because people are suffering. People are suffering. And I understand the dark times. I understand the many years that I went through depression, because I've always tried to be loyal to God by prayer, but I realized that prayer wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Faith was needed. I had to believe that God loved me, because I felt so bad about the things I had done, and I felt like I was a terrible person. I had to believe that God would provide, that one day He'd take my suffering away. I thought I was destined to suffer. Why not? Jesus did. The saints did. Why not me? I'm not any better. I had to believe that God would forgive me.
Sometimes we'll go through that and we'll find out, like with my husband, he's an amazing man. And I think, he must think I'm flawed or whatever, when he actually doesn't. So a lot of the things that we do to ourselves, because as a part of recovering and healing and getting over things, we're doing a lot more to ourselves. We figure that we do have that support system in our family, in our lives, in our husbands.
Well,
and
that's great when you have it. And Kirk, what was your darkest time, and how were you drawn to being introspective in order to find peace and happiness?
Well, I thought the low point would have been February 1997. It was about 4:30 one Wednesday morning when I woke up on a hospital gurney with a tube going down my throat, where they were trying to vacuum off everything I had ingested. So that would be the low point. But again, I've spent the last 20-something years just trying to reconcile how this could happen. And I've done a lot of research and a lot of reading, and a lot of soul searching. And again, I was a poster child for not having an awareness of myself. I didn't realize, and I think one of the most critical points, Aimee, I didn't understand that I could control my self-image. And see, the self-image is powerful. Self-image is the strongest driver of our behavior.
Yes.
And what I learned about that is this. For example, to say that I am unemployed, I do not have a job, may be a fact for many people. But to say that I am worthless, that's a belief, that is a judgment. To say that I'm not dating anybody, I am single, may be a fact for many people, but to say that no one loves me, that is a judgment, that is a belief. And what I've discovered is that there's no room in our self-image for beliefs or judgments. It's best that we just stick to the facts. Again, that's something that I didn't understand at all.
Self-imposed. Self-imposed image.
Yeah, you know what I find is important is developing good daily habits. And I love this about you, that you believe in this too, because I don't believe in just praying and having faith, but also having the right attitude. You know, having good habits, doing the right thing, helping others, doing things that make you feel good about yourself, that makes other people feel good, helping others. And so when we come back, we're going to maybe discuss, Kirk, because I know that you know about these things, some good daily habits that people can follow to stop focusing so much on the standards set by the outside world. So for those that are just tuning in, I'm Aimee Cabo, and this is The Cure.
Love is the answer, God is the cure, reveals from a very sincere and honest position Aimee Cabo's life, a warrior who didn't give up and achieved the dream of her life. You can get to know more about her and her story on www.godisthecure.com or buying her book on Amazon.com. And now we continue with Aimee Cabo and The Cure on 880 The Biz.
Hi, we're back, and thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Aimee Cabo, and this is The Cure. We're joined by Dr. Boris Nikolov, Lillian, my newly discovered second cousin, and our special guest, Kirk Abner. And that song by Imagine Dragons, I love it. Pain, you make me a believer. And you tell me God doesn't send us messages? Oh yes, he uses songs, people, animals, friends, cousins, and now it's Kirk.
Thank you.
So, Kirk, would you oblige us, please, with what good habits we can follow, so that we don't focus so much on the outside world, that standards that the outside world set on us?
I think one of the most important things we can do in our pursuit of happiness is to understand what we can truly control. I've suggested the only thing we can really control is ourselves, and how that manifests itself. That means I can control what I do with intention, and I can also control how I respond to the events that happen in my life. So, at any moment, I feel like there's just unlimited potential. I mean, there's 1,000 different things we each can do in a single moment. But I think if you want to pursue that, genuine happiness, in other words, create what I refer to as your very own Garden of Eden, and what you want to do is start living with a sense of awareness of yourself, being able to see yourself in context, and then match that with living with intention. And that's a very powerful dynamic when you've got those two attributes working together. One of the ideas early on for me, it was a mantra, but anymore it just becomes, just kind of a way of being. If you really want to love yourself unconditionally, one way to look at that, and I would encourage your listeners to start just sort of visualizing being right now in the moment and being able to say to yourself, I do not need one other thing in my life to be happy, to be contented right in the moment. I don't have to have a better paying job. I don't have to be dating anybody. I don't need to be living in a big house. I don't have to have a nice car. I just, there's this entire world going on around me, but right now in this present moment, I am fully content. And, that to me, that is the best that I can be in the moment. When you can sit there and have that joy of being in the moment without any sort of need. And that's a very powerful place.
I have to tell you, Kirk, I am so glad listening to you, because in my kitchen, I have a poster that says, it has yesterday scratched out, tomorrow scratched out and you focus on today. But not only that, be grateful, be appreciative for all that you have.
Does it have Kirk Abner on the bottom?
No, but, because it doesn't matter if you have a big house or a fancy car. If you keep it clean, if you keep it neat, then you can appreciate it. Then you can live happier. Try to avoid stresses. If you have little doggies or little animals, if you groom them, if you take care of them, they love you. You learn to appreciate them. Be grateful for everything. When you drive, well, maybe not when you drive. When you walk, maybe it's not safe. Look at the sky. Notice how beautiful it is. Look at the nature. Realize the beauty around you. I think that if you're grateful, there's nothing that you want. And if there's nothing that you want, you won't suffer without it.
Exactly.
And if there's
fortunately,
nothing you
life
need,
in our
you're better
history,
off.
There's so many examples of people that are just so honorable in that acknowledging that. They were people that lacked so much, yet they had so much peace of mind about themselves and the way they were, the way they were living their lives. It's very fulfilling to see that.
Well, see, I have a theory about that. I believe that wherever there is good, evil must exist. And all those insecurities and all those negative thoughts, it's really the devil tempting you to try to make you feel bad, to try to make you feel bad about yourself and not feel good about yourself. And so the way that I combat that, you could always pray, but let's say I have a negative thought, then I think, at least this is good. Like, let's say you have a bad hair day. Oh, what a terrible hair day I have. Oh, but at least it's clean. So you just have to find the bright side of everything. And, you can, but it's not always easy. If you do believe that you're destined to suffer and God has forgotten you, or you're a terrible person, and you convince yourself that you're broken, you're gonna suffer. Until you make the choice to say, I don't want to suffer anymore. And there is a better way through Christ.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to offer up just another very practical consideration along those same lines. See, my thought is, if you're not following a path of unconditional love, then our default modus operandi is one that's driven by ego.
Yes.
And the problem is ego is never, ever satisfied. So, basically, ego is an attempt to control other human beings or present a lack of being able to control themselves. And there's a lot of symptoms of a life full of ego. Again, there's drama, there's disappointment, there's failure, there's guilt, there's anger, or there's being unaccountable. There's a whole lot of, again, just ways that symptoms of a life that's full of ego that you don't have when you're living a life of unconditional love.
Well, you just live better. Here's the thing about unconditional love. Okay, here's the thing. And I thought to myself, unconditional love. Okay, here's the thing about unconditional love. So I thought to myself, if I were to love unconditionally, I would say, well, the best way to not feel bad, because, I struggled with depression, and I thought, well, I learned how not to feel bad, because then I would think about how it would affect the people around me. How would it affect my husband and my children? And so that helps me to feel better. So that's how unconditional love helps you live better, because you do sometimes do the right thing for others, and when you do the right thing, you feel better about yourself.
Exactly.
Great. Kirk, can I ask you a question? I see that
Please.
you practically done any job in the world. So which one of those you think is really felt your heart? I don't know, like you really felt good doing it? Well, you worked on oil rigs, stockbroker, driven 18-wheelers, Bible salesman, door to door. Wow.
Yeah, of course I tried to do it all, didn't I? No, I get it. It's been difficult on the retirement plans, but it sure is fun to talk about. I did have quite an adventurous first 20-something years well, till I was 40, actually. But, when I think back on that, I do believe that what was driving so much of that was this ego notion that I just mentioned. Again, like I said, I had probably 18 different jobs by the time I was 41 years old. I just could not find the perfect job. And I think part of the reason for that, Boris, is because, again, I was driven by ego, and ego is never, ever satisfied. In fact, I had, by the time I was 41 years old, I think I had dated about 50 different women and had been married and divorced twice. I just couldn't find the perfect mate because ego is never, ever satisfied. Well, I'm so happy to report, since then,
That's so big of
for
you.
the last 20 years, I've had one job. I've had the same job. I train physicians on the Epic electronic medical record, and I've been with one person, the same person, my wonderful Tina. In fact, this September 1st at 7:30, we will have known each other for 20 years. So, I'm living proof that the principles in this book work. But you can find happiness, but you've got to start developing an awareness of self and really understand what it is that you can control. But to answer your question, there were certain aspects of all those different jobs I had that were at least fascinating. I think a lot of times I was trying to do what looked cool. For example, at the first of the 80s, you remember the 80s, I was urban cowboy. When the 80s finished, I was Charlie Sheen on Wall Street. So
That was funny.
Following the modern times.
And I think
Nice.
Lillian left, right? She's not with us. Okay. Well, thank you, Lillian. If you're listening, thank you for being with us. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kirk.
no, I just again, I think
You were speaking about ego, and I thought,
I think my career was just a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
yes.
Again, it went back to my self-image. I was the guy that ultimately I did not love myself, but I sure wanted to be cool,
Right.
and I wanted to be successful, and I wanted basically to impress women. So I think that's one reason why.
And that worked, I see.
Fortunately, I finally learned that one.
He meant impress God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Okay.
I am a
Ultimate.
fortunate fellow.
Okay. But that must be impressive, sitting in the president's the Oval Office. Tell us about that. Oh, sorry, Amy.
Well, no, I didn't get to go to the Oval Office. I worked my way through college at the University of Alabama.
Oh, okay.
That was it. I grew up in Nashville, and though Nashville's got 16 colleges and universities, my mother said we had to go 200 miles away to college. And I couldn't get accepted to Duke, so I went to the University of Alabama. And this was back in the 70s, and I actually worked my way through college selling books and Bibles door to door for the Thomas Nelson Publishing Company out of Nashville. And it was in the fall of 76. Somehow I was the number one salesman in the company. And at our banquet that fall, then Governor Ronald Reagan came, and he gave a speech, and he's the one that handed out all the awards to us. So that's an evening that I'll never, ever forget. He gave a wonderful speech, and
That
we
must
didn't
have
have
been
selfies back then, but I did get a picture with him.
that must have been really neat for you. And just to reflect back at what you were speaking about, ego, I understand that, and I've tried not to be big-headed in my life. I emphasize on trying to be humble. I find that a huge lesson in life that I learned. And for example, my ego was, some people would say I was confident, and I would say, oh yes, I'm confident. But then I discovered I'm not really confident. I just have faith in God's grace.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, ego. Again, to me, there's a whole scale of ego, of actions that are out of ego. For example, like arrogance. I think arrogance is an act of ego, where people think that they're better than other people. But I also think that, having doubt in yourself, not believing yourself, is a function of ego. That's what I refer to as no power or no control ego. A good example is, you can try to make another person feel sorry for you, and that comes out of what I refer to as power or control ego. The martyr syndrome is a great example of that. Or you can feel sorry for yourself, and I think that comes from no power, no control ego. So
Kind of like
again, what we're
the wake-up call for humanity that you mentioned.
Well, that's how some have described the book. It really, you think about all the messaging that's going on in our society today. Just all sorts of messages and just news and events and all. And I just, I don't think I'm going to change the world. My goal is just to try to get this pendulum swinging a little bit the other direction, just by bringing a little bit more awareness to ourselves. There's a lot of wonderful drives about, we need more breast cancer awareness or diabetes awareness or domestic violence awareness, and all those things are good. But I really think what we need to start with is we just have awareness about awareness. People need to really start seeing how they are and how they interact with their fellow human beings, starting just in their own families.
And this awareness, it isn't easy. Life isn't really easy. But it's important. It's important that we're there for each other. And, all we can do is try. Even if we're not good at it, even if we don't do great, we can try. And the effort means something. But Kirk,
exactly. And if it doesn't work that first time, then you can just try again.
Exactly.
Each day brings new moments, new opportunities to change, to improve.
And believe it or not, we can, each one of us, make a difference. Believe it or not, you don't know whose lives you're changing, whose hearts you're touching. You don't know. I know that I've been through a lot of things. I've been through a lot of things, and I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have gone through the things that I've gone through. And even for someone like me to have survived, and I just really want to help others. Because that's the only thing, that's the least thing I can do in return for the way that God has blessed me. Because if I ever believed that God didn't forgive me because I was too bad, He sure proved His love to me in my husband and my children, my friends, and my pets and my siblings. But thank you, Kirk. It's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much. You've been so informative. And we've come to the end of the show, guys. And, but thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, we're live every Friday at 2 p.m. And if you want to find out any information about any of our guests or anything spoken about in the show, then you can go to godisthecure.com. This is Aimee Cabo. I'm your host, and this is The Cure.